Well, all right. Welcome back to As It Should Be. Paul Berlino here. And, well, it's time to rank my top 20 favorite ABBA songs. Yeah, I know I just did an ABBA video last week, and some of you people probably are like, I don't really like ABBA. 2 weeks in a row of ABBA? Well, yeah, I feel ya. But see, the thing is that really what I should have done was done early last week, ranking the albums, and then a little bit later the same week, ranking my 20 favorite songs, right? But as I mentioned in the other video, I'm lazy, so I'm only just now getting around to doing the songs video, so that's what you're getting this week. Don't worry about it. This isn't going to become the all ABBA channel. Don't worry. But that said, those of you who love ABBA, well, there's more ABBA for you. And this video isn't going to be so long. The last video was like it was an hour, like it was a feature film length. We're not going to be going on so long this time around. But actually, well, in the interest of not going on so long, let's get started. Okay, so coming in at number 20 is Hey Hey Helen. Yeah, Hey Hey Helen is the second track on side one of the third album, the 1975 self-titled album, ABBA. And this is actually the very first deep cut that got my attention when I first started kind of digging through the albums and really going, okay, I'm going in. I'm gonna get to know this stuff. That was the first one to catch my attention, probably because it's the most straight-ahead rock track of any of their stuff. And it just sounds so different from anything that I expected from ABBA. But I soon learned, of course, that with ABBA you have to expect the unexpected, because they're kind of like the Beatles in that they don't just do the same thing over and over again, and you don't necessarily have any idea what the next song is going to sound like. It could kind of be anything, really. And I like that about them, and that's what makes a band great. That's what makes a group, especially songwriters and producers and arrangers, like, doing different things from track to track. The revolver approach. I love that. And like I said, this is kind of a straight-ahead rock track. On my last video, when I was ranking the albums, I was talking about how people often refer to this as a funky track, and I'm going, what the fuck are you guys talking about? This is a straight-ahead rock and roll, and that is the case, but there is like this funky clavinet break in the middle of the song. So maybe people are probably like in the middle of that part listening to it when they write this, but that's the only part that's remotely funky, but it's a cool part. And the guitar tone, unfortunately, isn't really that great. It's a little too scooped mids. The mids are scooped, which is kind of like an early foretaste of like the god-awful 80s guitar tones. Like a good proper 60s or 70s guitar tone, you need some mids for some like meat and some presence, right? There's no presence in the guitars on this because there's no mids. So as much as I like this track, I think I would love it way more if there was a better guitar tone. But there you go. Okay, so coming in at number 19 is Disillusion. Yeah, Disillusion is the third track on the debut ABBA album Ring Ring from 1973. And as I mentioned on my previous video, it's the only song that Agnetha, if I'm pronouncing that correct, give me a break, I'm a stupid American. Agnetha, it's the only song with a writing credit from Agnetha, and she co-wrote that with Bjorn. Now, she wrote the music and Bjorn wrote the lyrics, which figures because Bjorn really, with Benny and Bjorn was normally the lyric guy. I mean, he wrote music as well, but he was very much the lyric guy. So he's the one who wrote the lyrics, the English lyrics for Agnetha's song, Disillusion. Great song, one of my favorite songs from the first album. And for some reason, she shied away from writing anything else for ABBA. I don't know why, because she wrote lots of songs. I mean, if you go to her solo albums, she wrote quite a lot of the songs on those albums. Some of them she wrote outright, no co-writers. Some of them she wrote with co-writers, but yeah, she wrote a lot of songs. For whatever reason, she decided not to write for ABBA, and I don't know why that is, but it's kind of too bad, because, I mean, like I said, this is one of the best songs on the first album. We could have been missing out on a lot of really great stuff on those ABBA albums. But, just the same. Now, shout out to one of the viewers, let me look at this, Alexio Verdo. It's another name I'm probably mispronouncing. Sorry, Alexio, because, he actually pointed out to me in a comment that she re-recorded the song on her 1975 solo album. She re-recorded it in Swedish, and another guy wrote the lyrics in Swedish, so the co-write is different. It's Agneta and another guy, and yeah, I had to listen, and he was mentioning how it's much more fully produced, double track vocals when you get into the chorus section, and a lot of strings and stuff. And he's right. It does sound like a little bit more of a fuller, more pleasing arrangement, I would say. And yeah, I shout out to him for hipping me to that. Eventually, I'll be really digging through those solo albums. I've hardly done it so far, but yeah, I mean, on that same album, she also does a Swedish version, her own solo Swedish version of SOS, so there's that. But most of the songs are exclusive to that album. They're like new songs, not just redos of ABBA. But yeah, so there you go. Okay, so coming to number 18 is So Long. Yeah, So Long is from the self-titled album from 1975. It's the closing track on that album, and it's basically Waterloo Part 2. On the previous album, the Waterloo album, they of course had the great Waterloo, which was their big breakthrough hit. And now, I mentioned earlier that ABBA were always doing different things, and you never really knew what the next song was going to sound like, because they're always stretching out. They're always trying different styles and things. But on this, they basically kind of played it safe and went right back to the song that kind of basically made them, for whatever reason. But for some reason it works. I think it's a great track. I mean, Jesus, I have it on this list. There's so many songs I could have put on this list, but man, I really love So Long. And it's just a really great glammy track. It's kind of rocking, a little good guitar in there, and Suzi Quatro could have done a hell of a version of this, right? And I feel like I get kind of a vibe, a little bit of a Heat Wave by Martha and the Vandellas vibe as well. And, well, you can't go wrong there. Yeah, so that's about all I have to say about that. So Long, from the self-titled 1975 album, great track. Okay, so coming in number 17 is Just a Notion. Yeah, Just a Notion is from the latest album, Voyage, which, as I stand here, is about 3 months old. But this track is considerably older. This is actually an old vault track that they recorded in 1978. It's an outtake from Voulez-Vous. But man, it's such a great song, just such a nice, upbeat, cheery song. I mean, like the chorus is like really infectious and exuberant. And now the track, as it is on the new album, I think Benny and Bjorn probably messed with the backing track. I don't know if they did a new backing track outright, or if they just added things and changed things or whatever. They messed with the backing track in some capacity. I don't really know how. But the vocals are still the original from 1978. And, as I mentioned in my last video, I think that should have been the opening track on this album. Now, I don't understand how a song like this sits in the vault for 40 years, or for, well, over 40 years. But there you go. I mean, Benny and Bjorn, I guess they were perfectionists, and you know how it is. You have a tendency to kind of be a little harder on your own work, I think, than other people are. I mean, fans hear that and go, wow, what a great song. And Benny and Bjorn are like, that's crap. And they shove it in the vault. And then 40 years later, they go and listen to it and go, oh. And they hear it like you and I do. And they go, wow, this is actually pretty good. And here you go. Now it's on the new album, as it should be. And, but yeah, I don't understand how it could possibly be left off of Voulez-Vous. I mean, that would have been one of the best songs on that album, in my opinion. But there you go. Just a Notion. Okay, it's coming in number 16 is Bang a Boomerang. Yeah, Bang a Boomerang. Now that's from the third album, from the self-titled, and it's got a great, it's like a great upbeat glam track. I know I mentioned that they always do different things, and you don't know what they're going to do next and all that kind of stuff. But they did have certain styles that they would return to often. Inevitably Schlager would come back into play here and there, and on the first 3 albums or so, glam would pop up. Again and again, and that's okay with me because they have a lot of really great glam tracks that are some of my favorite ABBA tracks, and including this one, Bang a Boomerang. Now, it has kind of like a great motorboat snare kind of feel about it, and lyrics that basically boil down to the love you take is equal to the love you make, right? And now, Benny and Bjorn wrote this song initially for a duo called, let me look at my notes here, Sven and Lotta. They wrote the song for a duo called Sven and Lotta for the Eurovision contest. And Sven and Lotta recorded the song, used it, and entered the contest with it, because at this point, this was after ABBA had won with Waterloo, and they still wanted to. Benny and Bjorn still wanted to be involved as far as writing songs, but the band didn't want to actually appear anymore. And so Sven and Lotta got the song, recorded it, put it out, and then, kind of somewhat to the chagrin of Sven and Lotta, ABBA themselves went, well, you know what? Actually, now we're going to put this record out. And they just took the same backing track that Sven and Lotta had and put their vocals over it. And, well, there you go. It's on the 1975 self-titled. And it's a really great track. I mean, look it up. There's all kinds of... So that's the thing about ABBA. So many of their songs have videos. Go onto YouTube and just, like... there's such a glut of ABBA songs that have videos. And that's a good thing. That's as it should be. So, bang a boomerang. Okay, so coming in at number 15 is Chiquitita. Chiquitita, yeah, which is... What's the first track? Or the first single off of Voulez-Vous. And, well, they actually wrote it for UNICEF. And that's how it came about. And they did a video of it where they're, where they're in the, all you ABBA fans have seen the video where they're in the snow and everything. And the great thing about this video is the entire time... I mean, as far as apparently they're on a set. They're not actually out in the snow. I don't know. I mean, I watched some really awful docudrama on YouTube with actors and things where they show them doing that video and they show them on a set. The video doesn't look like a set, but I don't know. I don't really know what's... Somebody let me know. Did they actually do this on a set? Even if they're on a set, well, there's this wind, see? As there would be if they were out in the snow. I mean, it's cold and they're outdoors and it's snowy. And the entire time, poor old Frida has got hair in her face and she's doing this. The entire time. She's a trooper of the super sort and just keeps on, she just keeps smiling, she keeps singing, and she keeps moving the hair out of her face. And it's so difficult for me to watch. I just want to go, in through the screen and just, pin her hair back and be like, or tell somebody to, change the direction of the wind machine if it's on a set. I don't know. But anyway, Chiquitita, this is one of those songs where they go back to the Schlager style. It's kind of Schlagerish, right? Is that the word for it? It's kind of a Schlagerish vibe, and this is kind of a late in the game album for them to be doing that, because they really definitely stopped doing that on the later albums, but... Well, certainly not on the 80s albums, I don't think they did that. But this is the 79, the big final 70s album, mostly disco tracks. And they still found a way to get a Schlager tune in there. One of the best songs on the album, for my money, Chiquitita. Because coming in number 14 is Susie Hangaround. Yeah, Susie Hangaround is late on side 2 on the Waterloo album. Really, really great deep cut with Benny on vocals, and it's like this great chimey, jangly guitar pop tune with arpeggiated guitars and this great Morris Gibb style vocal from Benny. And as I said in my previous video, I've read disparaging comments about Benny's voice, and well, you're wrong. Benny has a perfectly great voice, a perfectly fine voice. I think I wish he sang more. I wish he sang more, because this track is, well, it's one of my 20 favorite in the entire ABBA catalog, and his voice is part of it. But I really like the song. I like jangly guitar. It's like the Beatles, 60s Bee Gees kind of fan in me is really what makes me love this song. But it's a great song, and yeah, it comes in at number 14. Go check it out, Susie Hangaround. Because coming in at number 13 is I Do. Did I get the right amount? I think it's 5 I do's. And yeah, well, this is from the ABBA self-titled album. And this was actually a bit of a hit here in the U.S., like one of their early hits in the U.S. I don't remember it from the radio, but looking up, stats and figures and all that kind of stuff and just looking things up on the internet, it's like, oh, wow, this charted here in the U.S. Okay. It's a great song. I mean, it's not... Initially, I didn't like this song much, and I don't mean recently, I mean back in the day. I mean, we're talking decades ago when I was first hearing the song. It wasn't one of my favorites. This wasn't one of the ones that I liked that much. I found it a little too old-timey. It has like this 50s Schlager style to it that I really didn't appreciate much as a younger guy. But man, I love this track now. In fact, when I started on this little journey here with, learning all these albums, getting into the albums and getting into all the individual tracks and things, this is one of the songs I would wake up in the morning with it in my head, and I would really, sometimes you have songs that are in your head, and even if you like the song, it kind of annoys you that it's just like, God, go away, why is this song in my head? I enjoyed every minute of this song being in my head. It made me want to put it on, you know what I mean? So, yeah, its standing has definitely risen for me. I do. Great track. It's coming in at number 12 is Ring Ring. Ring Ring, title track from their debut album, 1973, the opening track. Of course, on the original Swedish album, it's a Swedish version, and then they had an English version later on the album. On the international version, it's just the English version opening up the track. But you know what? It works either way. Like, the Swedish version is just as great. They're both great. But this was a track that the very first time that they were attempting to compete in the Eurovision contest. The very first time was this time when they didn't win with this song, but man, it was such a great song. And Bjorn and Benny were really into kind of doing a Phil Spector vibe with this record. So when they recorded this thing, they doubled everything. Like, everything's doubled on it in an attempt to get that sound. And that's why this record kind of has that sound. It sounds different from a lot of the other ABBA tracks, and it sounds kind of bigger. It sounds a lot bigger and fuller than any of the other tracks on that album. And of course, initially, like I mentioned, they had the Swedish version, but they needed, because they wanted to go international with this, they needed an English version, or an English lyric. So Stig Anderson, who was their manager and sometime lyricist, he wrote lyrics to a lot of their early songs as well. He knew, through publishing contacts or whatever, he knew Neil Sedaka. So he got Neil Sedaka and Phil Cody to write the English lyric for it. And it was kind of this moment where, this was when, that period when Neil Sedaka was kind of a has-been. His initial heyday of the late 50s and early 60s was behind him, and he kind of really couldn't get arrested as an artist. And his resurgence in the 70s with, like, Laughter in the Rain and stuff like that hadn't happened yet. So it probably wasn't that difficult to get him. Like, Neil was probably happy to get the work. But that's where Neil was, whereas ABBA was just at the beginning and ready to, like, explode, right? But either way, they were more than happy to get that. Neil Sedaka was still a big name, so it was a feather in their cap, I think, to have a writing credit from somebody, a classic songwriter like Neil, especially since they were brand new. So that was another reason why they got him. But man, what a track. Ring Ring. What a first song, first album, what a first song on the first album track, you know what I mean? It's like coming out explosive. Ring Ring. Okay, so coming in at number 11 is Happy New Year. Yeah, Happy New Year from the Super Trooper album, the 1980 album Super Trooper. Now, this song, it was originally called Daddy Don't Get... I'm gonna look at Daddy Don't Get Drunk on Christmas Day. Didn't want to get that wrong. But it turned into more of a song about, feeling lost at the end of a decade, which, of course, they would indeed be feeling because they were, the very joy of being in ABBA really kind of eluded them at this point because, the couples had broken up and everything just kind of got darker and more difficult around this time, right at the dawn of 1980. Right, and that's kind of really what this song, at least, is partially about. I think Bjorn kind of always denies the stuff being directly related or 100% directly related, but a lot of the lyrics of some of this stuff, if you go and look at it, reflects the kind of stuff they were going through in their personal lives, and that makes sense. You're a songwriter, that's what you're going to draw on, right? But yeah, the highs of the 70s had come crashing down, and here they are standing here staring the 80s in the face, and they hardly like being in the studio with one another, and yeah, things got a little bit rough, and this song reflects that. But it's a great song. Happy New Year. Okay, so now we're up to my top 10 favorite ABBA songs, and coming in number 10 is Waterloo. Yeah, Waterloo, title track from their second album from 1974. Now, and of course their big breakthrough song, as everybody knows, and as I already mentioned in the last song, or the last video. And, Bjorn and Benny, they wrote the music for this but they didn't write the lyrics. They actually had written the music and the melody and recorded a demo where they're just kind of singing gibberish to the melody, you know, you know, and handed it over to Stig Anderson, their manager, who wrote the lyrics. You know, he took that and he proceeded to write lyrics about, you know, proper lyrics using Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo as a metaphor for a girl succumbing to a guy's romantic advances. A little weird, but I mean, you know, I am the Eggman, they are the Eggman, I'm the Walrus. It's a little weirder, don't you think? So, I mean, you know, give old Stig a break, will you? But yeah, Waterloo, great track. One of their best tracks. Top 10. There you go. Okay, it's coming in number 9. My Love, My Life. Yeah, this is the third track on side 1 of 1976's Arrival album. And this was actually the first album track, like deeper cut, on that album to get my attention. It's just a simple ballad, you know, about the breaking up of a relationship, but it's just, you know, the chorus melody and the lush backing vocals and everything just gets me every single time. And this is another one of those songs that I kept waking up in the morning with it in my head and me just going, oh yeah, that song. And it's also another one of those songs, another one of those deeper cuts that has a video. Go to YouTube, there's a video for it, just like so many of all their singles, but so many of their deeper cuts. But yeah, My Love, My Life, a really great deep ballad. Okay, so track number 8, Fernando. Yeah, Fernando. Now this is a 1976 single. It's just a standalone single. It wasn't from an album. And well, initially it had been a Frida solo track. She did this, well, it was a single of hers in 1975, solo single, but then her 1975 album called Frida Ensam. I don't know how you pronounce that, but in Swedish, in English that means Frida Alone. And it's the opening track of her 1975 album. Well, ABBA redid it in late 75 and then issued it in early 1976 as a single. And it ended up coming out on, it's not on any of the albums, but it's on their greatest hits album, like that classic first one, you know, where they're sitting on the benches, you know, and Bjorn and Agnetha are kissing. Yeah, you know, it's on that album. But like I said in my last video, it should have been on Arrival. But yeah, great track, Fernando. Okay, it's coming in number 7, The Name of the Game. Yeah, The Name of the Game is actually the first single released off their 1977 album, ABBA The Album. And that is, from what I understand, that's called ABBA The Album because, of course, also that same year they had ABBA The Movie. So I guess they kind of, you know, come as a pair in a way, or they're associated. I don't really remember, did that really come out here in the U.S.? So maybe somebody can tell me in the comments. I don't remember that being in the theater when I was a kid. In fact, I don't think I even knew about that movie in the 70s. But you know, whatever. I mean, there's so many other countries who were so much more advanced with ABBA who probably got that. It was probably a big hit movie, I'm guessing. You know, the U.S. behind the times as always. But yeah, but The Name of the Game, I mean, you know, it's kind of like it has that mellow gold 70s vibe, California kind of 70s vibe. And I don't really have a really strong memory of hearing it on the radio a lot, even though it's one of their bigger hits from the period. But I don't recall hearing it on the radio quite as much as other singles from that time. I kind of remember it more from a TV ad that I used to see, late 70s, early 80s, for, I don't know if it was like a K-Tel compilation album for like the hits of the day, or if it was an ABBA compilation, because K-Tel did have an ABBA compilation or two that they sold on TV, where they played just a snippet of the song, and that's so, you know, the name of the game, and just that one part. So for the longest time, that's kind of really all I knew of the song. But man, I mean, what a great track. A nice smooth vibe. Mid-70s ABBA track. Can't go wrong there, right? The Name of the Game. Okay, so coming in number 6, SOS. Yeah, SOS, man. What a song. What a great song. I mean, the way the song sort of explodes out of the minor key verses into the more major key choruses, you know, is just incendiary, right? And as I mentioned earlier, this song was recorded, or I guess re-recorded, by Agnetha on her 1975 solo album. It's the opening track on that album. And I mean, yeah, I think who could possibly argue that this is one of ABBA's greatest songs? And yeah, it's kind of all I have to say about that, because we all know SOS, right? SOS. I mean, Pete Townsend loved that song. Who else loved that song? Oh, you know, everybody loved that song because it's a great song. SOS. Okay, so coming in at number 5, Take a Chance on Me. Yeah, Take a Chance on Me. This is one of their biggest singles in the U.S., that's for sure. In fact, it's probably second only to Dancing Queen in the U.S. I mean, it was just all over the radio. I mean, if there's one ABBA track that takes me right back to that time, it's an all-timer at one time, on one hand, but on the other hand, it just takes me right back to when I was 7, 8 years old. In 1977, 78, it was just all over the radio. It was just, you heard it every day. And it's by far one of their greatest singles. Now, I mean, this is what I wanted to say. I'm kind of going, wait, there was something I wanted to say about this. I actually already said this in my last video, but I'm going to say it again anyway. That when I was a kid, I actually thought they said, when they say, honey, I'm still free, take a chance on me, I always thought they said, all the oxen free, take a chance on me. That's what I thought. You know, as a kid, the mind of a child, the mind of a 7, 8-year-old kid. All the oxen free, take a chance on me. Okay, but you know, my aunt actually had that single, the picture sleeve single, and I don't have one. I don't have. That's one of the things I want to get. I want to get a copy of the U.S. picture sleeve single of "Take a Chance on Me," but I haven't gotten it yet. And so I used to listen to it all the time, but I actually never got one of my own at the time. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to get singles all the time of the songs that I really loved on the radio, but there were so many songs that I loved on the radio that there were plenty that slipped through the cracks, and that was one of them. But man, what a song. Take a Chance on Me. Okay, so coming in at number 4, Eagle. Yeah, Eagle, the opening track on ABBA, the album. And this, as I mentioned before in my previous video, is my favorite ABBA opening track. Such a great track. I mean, it was apparently supposed to be a single here in the U.S. actually, but for whatever reason it was withdrawn and it never came out as a single. I would love to know what would have happened. Would that have been a hit? Would Eagle have been a hit in the U.S. if they put it out? I don't know. Somebody must have thought better of it and went, you know, this is too heavy for the U.S. market. And in a way, I can kind of see that because this is definitely one of ABBA's coolest tracks. Actually, this is probably ABBA's their absolutely coolest track. I mean, see, the thing is ABBA can sometimes be a bit hokey, and, you know, that isn't necessarily, I'm not putting them down. I mean, some of their hokey, I love some of their hokey tracks. Some of them I don't love. But Eagle is utterly devoid of any of ABBA's hokiness. I mean, it's just this really it's almost a little proggy, and it kind of sounds like they're kind of trying to do mid-70s Pink Floyd. I mean, I could imagine this track being, on, you know, Wish You Were Here or something, or even Dark Side, like, you know, mid-70s, big, you know, blockbuster Pink Floyd. Great track. If you haven't dug into ABBA and you only know the singles, that's kind of a good place to start. I mean, it doesn't exactly give you an idea of what the rest of the song's going to sound like, because no other song in ABBA's catalog sounds like that, but it definitely will put you in a good headspace. ABBA will, you'll have a bit of goodwill right out of the gate for ABBA if you hear that song first. It's a great one. Eagle. Okay, so coming in number 3, Tiger. Oh man, Tiger. God, I love this song. It's really desperate to be number 1, and I'm rooting for it. It's headed there, but for now it's number 3. Now this is on the Arrival album from 1976, and they have it buried deep, like almost at the very end of side 2. I don't understand it. Easily one of the best, not just one of the best songs on that album, but in their entire catalog. And that needs to be, you know, like I mentioned, one of the millions of things that I already mentioned in the previous video, their ideas of track order on their albums are a little weird. I mean, some of their stuff, their albums could use a little bit of rearranging in terms of track order. And Tiger definitely needs to be earlier in that album. And it's definitely the song that kind of hit me the hardest, like that I didn't know, and that I'm just most that I love the most that I didn't already know. In fact, it's the song that I love the most that I didn't already know. Okay? In other words, the 2 songs I have left on this list I already knew. But so they did this great video for this song that was, you know, I discovered it on YouTube, and it was really the video that kind of made this song truly hit home with me. And I'm going, man, there's a video for Tiger? there's a video for everything. Why is there a video for Tiger? And then I found out it's because they had a special, a TV special in 1976 called ABBA Dabba Doo. ABBA Dabba Doo. And, well, they had a bunch of music videos that they made. You know, one of the music videos on it was their video for Tiger, and it's so cool. They're out at night, you know, it's like them outside at night, you know, dressed like you don't want to run into them in a dark alley. Like Frida is all in denim with the headband on, and they're like driving around the city in a convertible and just looking damn cool. And the song is damn cool, like just great, just like rock guitar with just like a great punchy verse, and I absolutely love this song, Tiger. Okay, so coming in number 2 is Dancing Queen. Yeah, I have Dancing Queen at number 2. I know a lot of you probably have it at number 1. You know, this is arguably their most perfect song. But, you know, I do have one above it that I like a bit more, but really technically this is probably the most perfect ABBA song. And it started out life as a demo called Boogaloo. Okay, so they knew they were going for the dance vibe right out of the gate. And they were inspired by Rock Your Baby by George McRae. Like George McRae's Rock Your Baby was like 74, maybe early 75, and that's kind of the vibe they were going for. But what's great is it doesn't sound like they copied that song at all, because I don't think they really copied it. They kind of just went for like a loosely inspired, and they really came up with their own thing. I mean, Dancing Queen is its own track. There's nothing else that sounds quite like it, even though it's disco-ish, like disco pop. But it stands on its own and on its own merits. I mean, if you know only one song by ABBA, this is probably the song, right? I mean, you know, at this point it might be Mamma Mia because of the movie, and wasn't it a stage play as well? I know, I'm new to ABBA, guys, so. But yeah, Dancing Queen is probably the song that if you only know one song, that's it. And I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, it's fucking Dancing Queen, people. Okay, so coming in number 1 is the same song that has always been number 1, even going back all the way to the 70s. Even after going through all these albums and listening to all these songs and discovering so many great tracks, in the end, my favorite ABBA song remains the same as it always has been. Knowing Me, Knowing You. Uh-huh. Yeah. Knowing Me, Knowing You. That has always been my favorite. And, you know, it's of course it's off Arrival from 1976. It's the third single to be released off of Arrival. And this is kind of on this album, and with songs like this is where themes of breakup themes start to kind of creep in to the albums, because there wasn't so much of that earlier on. But at this point, I mean, these guys are going through, you know, there's definitely strain going on. You know, got to think about everything those guys are going through. I mean, these guys are on top of the world. They're like one of the biggest bands on the planet at this moment in time. And there are 2 couples in the band. They have kids. They have stress of this highly, highly demanding career, you know, always constantly having to travel, constantly have to make records, constantly have to, you know, do shows and interviews and everything. And yeah, I mean, this is probably the earliest point where the relationships started to get strained. I mean, I'm sure it probably wasn't anything major or critical at this point, but you can see it in the songs. I mean, all of a sudden, I mean, there are 2 songs about breakups on this album, and you know, that's where things start to go after this. Maybe not. I don't think there's really any breakup stuff on the album, the follow up. But you know, this is the earliest cracks are probably around this time, right? If I'm not mistaken. But man, what a song! Knowing Me, Knowing You. I mean, this takes me so back to when I was 7. I mean, you know, 76, 77. I always loved this song, and anytime that I would go back to ABBA, kind of thinking about how I always really liked their singles and how maybe I wanted to start digging into their records and maybe get to know their deeper cuts a little bit more. This is always the song that stood out. And like I said, even after going through all this stuff, this is still the one that sits on the top. Knowing Me, Knowing You. I mean, its timeline is everything. I mean, it has a lot to do with where it sits in my heart, man. Because yeah, because you know my connection to the '70s and my childhood in the '70s is so strong. So, take two. My connection to the '70s and my childhood in the '70s is so strong that it's kind of hard to dethrone tracks like this. So this will probably always kind of have the edge, no matter what. Even Tiger probably won't be able to overtake it, but you never know. But there you go. Knowing me, knowing you. Okay, so there you go. That's my top 20 favorite ABBA tracks. As it stands at this point, I mean, you know, as I've mentioned numerous times over the last video and this one, I'm still pretty new to the catalog, so these are early. These are early opinions and perceptions, if you will. So at some point, I'm sure a lot of this will change. There'll probably be songs on this list that'll be like, oh God, I had that on the list? That was number 10? What? Who knows? But as it stands, this is my list right now. So for those of you who are not ABBA fans, who watched this video anyway, who watched my videos, don't worry. Next week is not going to be an ABBA video. Okay? I had to get this one in. I'll do something different next week, I promise. But everybody who's watching, especially people who are watching a video like this who aren't really into the band, I really appreciate that, because I have people whose channels I watch, and I'm really into watching their videos, and even when they talk about bands that I don't like, I still watch the videos, because there's just, yeah, I just enjoy their style. And sometimes when you watch people's videos, and you kind of feel like you're hanging out with that person in a way, and yeah, you kind of really, you almost feel like you get to know this person. And I experience that a lot watching other people's YouTube videos. Yeah, so you still watch stuff. I mean, there are people who have channels where they talk about bands that I hate, and I still watch the video, and I still enjoy it, depending on the person and their personality, what they have to say. And yeah, so if you're one of those people watching this video, I especially salute you. But you know what? Thank you to everybody who watches my videos. And thank you to everybody who has subscribed. But if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And if you do subscribe, click the little bell for notifications, because you're going to want those. Comment, like, all that kind of stuff. Help me get into those algorithms, if you would. And yeah, and I will see you next time.